Apep is a serpent god or demon, however you see it, of evil and destruction. And in ancient Kemetic beliefs, he is deified as several evil concepts, including darkness, chaos, and destructions. He is the definitive enemy of the most powerful god in the pantheon, which is the sun god Re or Ra. Apep is believed to threaten the god, especially during his nightly travels across the sky. And because he is a menace to the sun god himself, he is connected with the idea of the destruction of creation, because the whole world would plunge into darkness if he ever successfully devours Ra. It is also because of his malevolence and persistence that several other deities in the pantheon are joined in to protect Ra every night. We most famously see that Set, who typically himself is cast as, darkness and chaos and destruction himself, turns into the protector of Ra on this nightly journey. Set is proud to be able to say that I slay the enemies of Ra. That's something that is attributed to the deity that we call Set in regard to the Apep snake. And Apep was also fought many times by Menhet, who was ordered to protect the solar barge. And they would usually cut the belly of the serpent to release Ra from his clutches, but Set seemed to evolve into a more powerful deity and fought him more hand-to-hand, one-on-one as some of the mythologies progressed. And at times these duties were passed on to other goddesses and gods or deities, including Aset, Bastet, Sekhmet, Neith, Serket, Geb, and Aker, who we just did a video about Aker talking about his role in specifically being a neutralizer of Apep. Now, in this case, the female protectors of Ra were collectively known as the Eves of Ra. The important thing that we look at with Apep is later on, Norse mythology would introduce a very similar concept with the story of the Midgardian serpent, and that he surrounded the earth as well to bring about the ultimate destruction of the world. So I think it's interesting that we see some snake, either god or deity or demon worship that's still tied to very similar concepts. One of the most frightening aspects of Apep is that he was linked to some natural occurrences. Solar eclipses, devastating earthquakes, and terrible storms were all linked to this specific deity. He was believed to dwell in the northern sky, a place that the Kemites thought to be dangerous, dark, and cold. And like Set, he was always closely linked to the demon goddess Taweret. Now, the only difference between Apep and Set is ultimately that Apep was constantly a threat, whereas Set ultimately proved to be an asset to his pantheon because, one, he saw himself as a protector, and what Set really represented was untapped energy. He was the opposite of his brother Asar, who was obviously disciplined and controlled, and he just represented that potential energy that is always around us. And while it's dangerous, we need that potential energy so that we continue to grow. Apep was very much a very character, whereas he purely represented a destructive force. Apep became more of a full-blown deity during the Middle Kingdom, although there was strong evidence of serpent gods who existed even before the pre-dynastic period, especially in pottery and other art forms. During the New Kingdom, stories and legends about him largely developed, particularly in funerary texts. In funerary texts, he is seen as a dismembered snake, most of the time caught by Hathor or Ra in a cat form using a knife. But in certain temples, he is seen as a huge circular eye representing his evil eye. The reputation of this deity precedes him in the instant that he was never worshipped at any point, but has always been feared and greatly disliked. He is perhaps the only of the pantheon that we would see who can never ultimately be defeated, only temporarily subdued. His powers are so immense that he does not require nourishment to continue to exist. and due to his menacing qualities, he has taken on several epitaphs throughout Kemetic history, including the Serpent of Rebirth, the Enemy, the Encircler of the World, and the Evil Lizard. In mythology, it is said that he has an army thought to feed on the living and the dead both, and to halt their rampage, a ritual known as the Banishing of Apep was typically performed annually by the Priestess of Ra. Usually a statue of Aten is taken to the temple and imbued with all the known evils of the kingdom, and in that effigy was beaten, smeared with mud, and burned down to ashes. Similarly, other rituals are also based on this principle to ward off the malevolent force of Apep.